Welcome to Act 3, the podcast where we explore how to thoughtfully shape the rest of our lives. I'm your host, Kara Gray. This podcast is sponsored by Good Morning Freedom, my retirement coaching service where I help executives and professionals plan their Act 3. For more information, stay tuned until the end. Today, I welcome Joan Pagano to the podcast. Joan has specialized in strength training for women since 1988. Training, teaching, and writing books on the subject, including strength training exercises for women. As a natural segue, Joan developed an expertise in coaching women on the best exercises to enhance their bone health. Her body of work includes a 10-part series of articles entitled The Best Exercises for Osteoporosis Prevention, which addresses all aspects of osteoporosis, from risk factors and screening to appropriate exercise for different levels of bone density, to the best exercises for core stability, posture, body mechanics, balance, and fall prevention, as well as exercises to avoid. She is recognized by the industry as a leading authority on exercise programs designed for osteoporosis. Joan is certified as exercise physiologist by the American College of Sports Medicine and is on the Ambassadors Leadership Council for Bone Health and the Osteoporosis Foundation. She is the owner of Joan Pagano Fitness in New York City and former trainer to Jacqueline and Carolyn Kennedy. So welcome, Joan, to the podcast.
Thank you, Kara. My pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah, today we're going to talk about, in specific, women's health, and I'm thrilled to offer this kind of informational interview to my audience because I really think this is valuable. I mean, certainly making sure that we stay healthy as we age is a big deal. And for women in particular, bone health is a big concern. So I'm happy to hop into all that with you and learn from you. But I have to start with celebrity. You have to tell me how you met Jacqueline and Carolyn Kennedy and what all the details, Joan.
Okay, yeah, sure. I started my career working in the first one-on-one training facility in New York City. It was called the Trainer's Edge on the Upper East Side. And it was a wonderful facility with lots of fresh air and beautiful plants and lots of light. And it was owned by two young women in their 20s. And they had attracted a very high profile, but sort of low key clientele. And Caroline Kennedy was one of their members. Caroline and I trained together for a while there. And then she wanted a trainer to come home to her home while she was raising her young family and writing her first books. So she asked me whether I could come and train her in her home. And we had a very successful 5-year relationship, training her in her bedroom. Sometimes her gorgeous brother would stop by and I'd be sitting there with John and Caroline Kennedy in her bedroom. How did I ever get here? One day I came home from training clients and there was a message on my answering machine, the old-fashioned answering machines, from her mother who said, "Hello, Joan. My name is Jacqueline Onassis, Caroline's mother." And of course, after I picked myself up from the floor, I was like, wow, what is this about? And she said, was wondering if you would be available to come and train me for horseback riding. So what she wanted was somebody to come to her home and help her find exercises that would restore her confidence in horseback riding, because she found as she was getting older, and she was around 60 at this time, as she was getting older, she was losing that fearlessness that she had always ridden with. And she wanted to restore that. And she knew that strength training would be empowering, not only physically, but also mentally, building her self-esteem for the sport. So that's what I did. I went to her apartment on Fifth Avenue and I designed a series of exercises specific to the muscle groups that you would need for horseback riding. And she was one of the most focused clients I've ever had the pleasure of training. She watched everything I did. She rehearsed the movements. She took notes. And she added these exercises to a little routine that she had culled from other instructors in yoga and strength training, and she wanted a routine she could do at home. So, of course, I was hoping that she would renew and take a package of 10 so I could continue the relationship. But she really didn't want to add any more appointments into her schedule than she already had. I must say she had the flattest tummy of any 60-year-old that I have ever trained. She was very particular about keeping herself in shape. And I think the message that this sends to women all over the world is that number one, strength training is empowering and confidence building, not only physically, but mentally. Secondly, that you can do an exercise program at home, which is effective and economical, and that it is something that you can do, that this is something that builds a can-do attitude.
I love it. Okay, you've satisfied my curiosity there. I mean, if you put that in your bio, I just got to ask. That is like, we all are fascinated with celebrities, so I appreciate your indulgence.
Well, she was kind of a goddess to the baby boomers.
Yeah,
Now, with the following generations, some people are not familiar with the Kennedys and the Kennedy era, but those of us who lived through it we're certainly wowed by her, even if we didn't like the politics.
yeah,
She was quite an icon for us.
yeah. Very good. All right, I'm going to get back to the main topic here. Tell us how you first became interested in strength training for women and what inspired you.
Thank you for that. Two things happened simultaneously. One, in general, in the fitness climate of what was happening at that time, and one was more personal to my career path. What was happening in the late 1980s is that cardio was king. Kenneth
Jane
Cooper's
Fonda.
yeah, Jane Fonda, marathon running, and Kenneth Cooper's Aerobics Institute in Texas doing all the research on the heart benefits of cardio. So cardio ruled.
Yep.
Strength training was something relegated to the hardcore gyms for men, not a very feminine thing to do, and it wasn't being promoted to women as a an important part of their fitness training workout. So that was going on in the world. Strength training was just beginning to make headlines for the health benefits, especially for bones in women, but also for strengthening the heart and for overall health benefits. It was just starting to be researched and recognized as an important adjunct for women. Simultaneously, I had a client who had made incredible progress in her fitness training program. She was a breast cancer survivor, and she felt that not enough was being done for women in the arena of fitness training for post-operative breast surgery. She was active in the post-operative breast cancer circles in New York. She invited me to attend some hospital sort of group therapy sessions. There wasn't really much being done for exercises. There
Mm.
was an aquatic program at the Y that was part aquatic and part sort of group therapy. But aside from that, very little was being done. I started researching. Fortunately, I had a personal friend who was the chief of plastic and reconstructive surgery at Memorial Sloan Kettering, our big cancer hospital in New York City. He acted as my medical advisor as I developed guidelines because I realized that everything that we benefit from in general from a fitness training program, from your cardiovascular benefits, from your strength, from your ability to stretch and stay tall and be balanced, all of that would apply to women who had had breast surgery. So I developed a program, and Dr. Hidalgo acted as my supervisor, and I started peddling my program around. I found a group called Share, SHARE, as in sharing information, who, after they screened me thoroughly, invited me to give workshops for breast. It was a grassroots kind of support group for women who had breast cancer. So I started doing my fitness training program workshops for this population there, and found that because of their age being postmenopausal, or because their treatments had thrown them into an early menopause, they had a very high level of interest in osteoporosis, exercise for osteoporosis prevention and treatment. So, with my emphasis in strength training coming up to the fore in the fitness training arena, and then with this personal experience of working with women one on one and in small group workshops, it was just a natural path that opened for me.
Wow. It's funny how things line up sometimes.
It's great
Uh,
when it does.
and
It's great.
it is, it is. So your book, Strength Training Exercises for Women, which I'll definitely put a link, I assume it's available on Amazon and all the
Yes.
places. What are some key takeaways that you hope readers will implement into their fitness routines?
Okay. Key takeaways for strength training.
The
I need
highlights.
to, yeah, I like, okay. I need to back up for 1 second and talk about the books, because this was
Yeah.
something else that was very serendipitous at that time. My publisher is based in London, Dorling Kindersley, an old, revered publishing house that's known for its beautiful photographic books, gorgeous, the eyewitness travel guides, kids' books for dinosaurs and art and science and things like that. They have a huge reach because wherever the British Empire went, which was all over the world, they had a stronghold. So they were looking for an author, and they wanted an American. They did not want a physician or a scientist. They wanted somebody with a lot of hands-on experience. They were researching trainers, basically trainers in the United States, and found me. They found the types of programs that I was presenting at national conferences of fitness instructors. And these were my two specialties, which were fitness training for postoperative breast surgery and fitness training for osteoporosis prevention and treatment. So they saw that I had a very invested interest in women's health issues, and they contacted me to see if I would be interested in writing the first book, which has a similar title to the one that's currently available. Strength Training for Women was the first book. And then I had a very warm relationship with Dorling Kindersley, who are now known as DK in the United States. We did 6 or 7 books in a row together, basically focused on strength training for women. And the last one, the Strength Training Exercises for Women, is the one that is a compilation of all the best exercises from the previous books. So I was very, very fortunate to be contacted by them and to develop the relationship that I did with them. So, strength training exercises for women, what are some of the highlights? My method starts with body weight exercises. I want to make it manageable for everybody to do strength training. And body weight exercises are a form of resistance training. Resistance training meaning the method of applying resistance to the muscle that makes it get stronger. What we found was that as the resistance is applied to the muscle, it pulls on the bone and therefore creates stronger bones as well as stronger muscles. So you're getting what we call a parallel hypertrophy of muscle and bone by doing one movement. Starting with strength with just body weight exercises like push-ups, squats, back extensions, and abdominal compressions. Those are what I call my 4 for life exercises. And there is a variation that will work for everybody. For instance, push-ups. These these make a lot of women shudder. Just the idea. People
Yes.
have people have terrible images, terrible childhood experiences of somebody who made them do push-ups. They're hard. You have to get down to the floor. There are a lot of excuses why people, but I tell you, a push-up targets 3 main muscle groups of the upper body: the chest, the front of the shoulder, and the tricep in the back of the arm, which every woman I've ever met wants to engage. So
Yep.
you can do push-ups standing against a wall with your arms outstretched, which is the least amount of resistance. You can do them against the kitchen counter, which is one of my very favorite exercises. Now your body is on a diagonal and you've shifted more body weight to your upper body. So it's more effective than just doing a standing push-up against the wall. And then if you really want to advance, you can go down to the floor and do half push-ups from the knees or full military push-ups. So just as an example, there's variations in push-ups, and in squats, the same thing. You can do a sit to stand. Everybody needs to be able to get up from a seated position,
Yeah.
whatever, even if you have bad knees. I don't want to say bad knees, even if you have touchy knees, um, or other limiting factors, you need to be able to get up from a seated position. So a squat is the number one functional exercise in life because it is the movement that we need to get up from a chair, from the
Yep.
toilet, from the bathtub. So even my mother in her late 90s from a wheelchair could do 10 sit to stand squats where she would be sitting and then stand up and sit back down again. That's the beginning version. Everybody should be able to do 10. And if really you have problems with your knees, you could do a wall sit against the wall where you don't have to move the joint. But you progress from there, and then do a stand to sit squat, and then you add resistance, holding weights. So body weight exercises are a good way to start. I like to help people find where they are in their fitness journey and help them from there. So if you're not doing anything and you just start doing the body weight exercises, you will be that much further ahead if you never do anything else. But if you do decide to do other types of resistance training using weights or the stretch bands or tubes or weighted balls or bars, then you've already taught your body how to align itself. You've worked on your form, you've worked on your breathing. You've done a lot of preliminary work in these simple body weight exercises that help prepare you for more advanced work.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about your process in terms of like how you decide on an exercise program for your clients, but that was a little part of it, I'm sure.
Definitely. The first thing is that you need a health history questionnaire that helps you understand what your client's medical history and personal objectives and goals are. Then you add in all your expertise in terms of what is the right quote protocol for training this person. For instance, if you have arthritis, you want to do lighter weights and higher repetitions, meaning like easy things to keep mobility in the joints and to strengthen the muscles around the joints. If you have osteoporosis, however, you want to lift the maximum weight and hit the ground with the maximum impact that you can in order to make the bones stronger. Being
Mm.
aware that you need a personal profile of how strong your joints and bones are to begin with so that you don't do any damage to them by adding
Yeah.
impact or heavier weights. So I'm just saying that the expertise of the trainer, or I'm actually an exercise physiologist with the American College of Sports Medicine. That's where our expertise comes in. We decide what we would advise for you, and then we adapt according to what your interests are, where you are starting, what you would like to do, what you have time to do. If you come to me and say, I only have 10 minutes a day. What should I do? I would give you exercises for 10 minutes a day. Absolutely. And help you at least achieve that because that's very motivating. If you can do 10 minutes a day, maybe you can move on from there. So it's just meeting somebody where they are and doing what's safe and recommended for them while addressing their own needs or goals.
Yeah, I was always under the impression, and maybe this is false narrative in my head, that you start strength training and then you have to continually increase and increase and increase to keep building. Will you speak to that? Because I think I might not understand that. And I would guess that some of my listeners perhaps have the same confusion and avoidance of strength training for that reason.
And that's a really good point, Kara, and interesting, sort of another myth. There are lots
Yeah.
of myths and misconceptions that surround strength training. For me, and for what I advise my clients, strength training is what you need now. So, for instance, if you're preparing for a knee replacement, I will train you in the exercises that will strengthen your femur so that when you go to have your surgery, you will be that much further ahead of the game. If you are recovering from surgery, that's a whole nother level of exercise. For instance, in the breast cancer arena, restricted movement is a problem. If lymph nodes have been removed, or if you've had a lumpectomy or a mastectomy, you may have restricted movement, and which could be in your shoulder joint, which could be affecting your posture. So then we would start with simple exercises that help open up the chest and restore the posture. It's kind of like whatever is going on in your life. And as you know, it's never a straight line. You're never just going to keep increasing, increasing, increasing. Actually, you could probably get injured if you did that. One of the pleasures for me in strength training is knowing what my body needs at the time. For instance, I'm a runner and I love to run, but I got pulled off track by a number of different things, including a chest cold and trips back and forth to New York in the cold and travel. And so I need to get back in my routine and I've started walking. In fact, this morning I took a few little running steps. So for me, and this is cardio, I know you asked about strength training, but it's sort of the same thing. You kind of back off. If you've had a layoff or a hiatus, you back off a little bit and you start again. And that's not backsliding. It's just smart. It's like starting where your body is prepared to start. Because if you advance too quickly, you could easily injure yourself or pull yourself off course in a different way that would require more effort than if you just listen to what your body needs. Sometimes it's floor work. Sometimes it's like getting down on the floor and doing some core exercises. Sometimes it's really pumping iron. Sometimes it's like, what do I feel capable of? I recently started myself on an upper body strength training program because I felt like my arms and wrists were getting weak in the kitchen. That's where I noticed it.
Mm.
And we read about this too. We read about how, when you become frail, which is something that nobody wants, you can't lift a full tea kettle or you can't open a jar on your own. And I found that lifting heavy stacks of platters or ceramic mixing bowls into overhead shelving was a little taxing for me. My wrists didn't feel strong enough. So I designed, of course, my own upper body strength training program based on my kitchen. I love working out in the kitchen. There's so many different things you can do in there. But based on
I think that's the next book, Joan.
right. Right. Everybody can relate to that.
Yeah. I can imagine that your book is great in terms of just getting started and getting your head wrapped around strength training and things you can start doing, body strength exercises. But I really feel like, you're making me want to hire a trainer. You're making me want to find somebody to truly partner with as I age, as we all age. What is the best way to find a trainer, I guess, is what I'm trying to ask.
Word of mouth. Word of mouth,
Really?
probably.
Well, I was
Yeah,
like, is there something through like the American College of Sports Medicine? Are there databases? Are there credentials that we should be looking for?
Yes, absolutely. And ACSM, American College of Sports Medicine, is one of them. IDEA, the International Dance, originally was the Dance Exercise Association, which is where it got its acronym from. But since then, they've expanded. They're probably our biggest fitness organization worldwide, and they have a roster of people who have certifications. So you need somebody who's certified in your needs. So if you're working on fall prevention or osteoporosis or hypertension or low back or shoulder issues. A good resource is actually a physical therapist too.
Mhm.
If you've been in the in if you've been in physical therapy for something, the trainer will take you from the physical therapist into a more generalized fitness training program using all the guidelines from the physical therapist. And actually, I wasn't kidding about word of mouth
Yeah.
because you'll find in my demographic, for instance, in women who have bone health concerns in the New York City area, they research and they look around and they see who comes up. And if they want to see somebody in person, that they find me. They find me because there are not a lot of us doing that. So it's kind of like talking to people that have the same concerns that you do. I'm dealing mainly with a postmenopausal demographic, although
Mhm.
I'm getting younger and younger women who are getting their first bone density in their 50s or 60s. Medicare doesn't cover a bone density test in the United States until you're 65, which is kind of late in the game. If you want to start a prevention program and you have risk factors, which could be being a woman and being of older age, those are two primary risk factors, then you might want to ask your doctors if you could have a baseline test so that you can be monitored periodically as you're getting older.
Mhm. For sure. What are the specific exercises or movements that should be avoided if you have osteoporosis, and why?
Okay, good question, Kara. First of all, there are two levels. Osteopenia is low bone density, not yet osteoporotic. So you're kind of in a gray area. This area is really being researched now. Very, very conservatively, you would observe the same guidelines as for diagnosed osteoporosis, which would be no forward flexion. In other words, not rounding your spine forward, because if there are fragile vertebrae in the spine and you start moving your head forward of your shoulder, ideal alignment is ear over shoulder, over hip, over knee. So if your head and all our heads start moving forward with age anyway, but if you're doing exercises like toe touches, like the plow in yoga, like crunches, well, sit-ups or crunches where you're rounding your back forward from the floor. There's certain movements in Pilates and yoga that would not be recommended, but you could do modifications of those movements. The other areas that you need to be careful of are your wrist, the most fragile areas. Well, wait, let's go back for a second to the spine, because I think they're
Okay.
most contraindications or movements. And I like the way you described it's not exercises you should avoid, it's movements that you should
Mhm.
avoid,
Mhm.
would be the forward flexion and rotation from the upper body when the lower body is still. So in other words, you are
Mm.
moving again your spine um, in a risky position. And same with side bends, like bending to the side. So you don't want to do any of those types of movements in a full range of motion. In other words, there are modifications in yoga, for instance, if you want to do a spinal twist, or for instance, if you want to do a spinal twist, you can do a modified spinal twist where you are keeping your shoulders over your hips and moving your torso in one piece. That's probably the most important guideline to remember. Keep your shoulders over your rib cage, over your hips, and move your torso in one piece. So even in yoga, where there are certain positions where you're standing and your legs are turned a certain way but you keep your torso square to the front. That's really important. Um, okay, so those are the main ones. Now, the other thing you have to be careful of if you have a hip low bone density in the hip, let's say, you don't want to do extreme stretching positions where you're putting your full body weight on your hip, like a pigeon pose in
Mm.
yoga. because anytime you start putting your whole body weight on a bone that is rotated in an extreme position, you are adding more pressure than perhaps that bone can manage. In terms of risks, so 40% of fractures occur in the spine. 25 occur in the hip, which is the most debilitating fracture and the one that we mostly want to avoid because that can be life-changing. And 15% are in the wrist, usually the result of an outstretched hand to break a fall.
Yeah.
So when we're younger, in our let's say 50s, and we fall, we still have the reaction time to get our arm up and break the fall that way. So we're more likely to fracture a wrist. In our 60s, the most common fracture are the fractures of the spine. And after that, in our 70s and 80s, it's usually a hip fracture because we can't break the fall.
Yeah.
So fall prevention is a very important part of a fitness training program.
Yeah. And strength training helps with that, certainly.
Absolutely. The stability, strength training gives you so much more stability in the lower body.
Yeah.
And balance throughout the body, upper body to lower body, one side to the other, all of it, that the body is, your center of gravity is in the right place.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay. Looking ahead, what trends or advancements do you see on the horizon for women's fitness, particularly in the areas of strength training?
I think more and more women are learning about the benefits of strength training for osteoporosis. It's, I've participated in 3 online summits hosted by my colleague, Margie Bissinger. And these summits where she has 50 or more presenters every year. It's been such a huge, huge success that she runs it again and adds a few additional sessions. This was the 3rd year that we did it. People are really hungry for information about this, and it's a relatively untapped and underserved area. So I have a great deal of faith in the fact that this is a trend to come and to stay. More and more women are discovering it. They're shocked.
Yeah.
Some women are shocked to find when they get their first bone density that they have their first bone density test, that they have a problem or let's say a condition that they didn't ever expect to have because they've been physically active their whole lives.
Yeah.
So it's very frustrating for somebody in that situation. Like, why? I don't understand. Why did I get osteoporosis? I've always been active. I always did strength training. But you
Yeah.
have to know, you really have to get your baseline. You have to know your numbers. And that goes with any kind of condition. So I guess my other mission in life, besides training women for bone density, is to make women aware that we are more likely to die of a heart attack than anything else. So the heart, and this is February, it's Heart Healthy Month,
Yep.
but the heart and the exercises that you need to do to strengthen your heart are also really important, and the education. I mean, we're all afraid of dying from cancer, or now some people have a concern about a hip fracture and what that would mean, or just becoming frail. But we need to know that the heart also benefits from a strength training program. By the way, it gets stronger. It's a muscle, and it
Yeah.
gets stronger. It gets stronger with both cardio and strength training. So I would say trends to come. It's not so much new exercises, it's new awareness of health risks and how we can manage them.
Yeah. Oh, this is such good information, Joan. Thank you so much for your time today. We talked about, my listeners are going to find your book on Amazon. I'm going to link that. And beyond that, if they have any questions or want to look up your practice, do you have a website, or where can people find you?
Yes, of course. It's www.joanpagano, Pagano, goodmorningfreedomfitness.com. I have so much free information on my website, starting with, if you sign up for my list, you get what's called the Fitness Refresh Program, which are 10 little videos of exercises that you can do around your house or apartment, starting with limbering exercises on the side of the bed in the morning, where you're doing head, neck, and shoulder rotations, wrist circles, shoulder circles, wrist circles, point and flex your ankles before you jump out of bed. Okay, we go from there to the kitchen. And I mentioned before, I love exercises in the kitchen because many of us spend a lot of time in the kitchen preparing our meals. So you can do kitchen counter push-ups in between, waiting for your pasta water to boil. You can do squats, or you can do lunges. There are many, many things that you can do while you're waiting for your toast or your coffee or your pasta. Then we move into your home office, and there are a couple of little videos for that. And we end up with bedside stretches on the couch at the end of the day. So just for signing up for my list, and I try to be regular in my e-blast, but I'm not always. I don't ever like to bother people. But anyway, you will get all of those, as well as access. Well, you get all the access to the information, the osteoporosis prevention series. There's a whole series of 10 articles. Everything's free. Everything's free. And then if you want more, there are the books, which you can purchase on Amazon. And there's an online strength training class, 4 sessions, which offers a lot of information as well as the workouts. And and I do consultations as well.
Wonderful. I'm going to go and sign up right now. I'm excited. I do need to add strength training back into my routine. I am guilty as charged, so I'm definitely going to do that. But I thank you so much for your time, Joan. This has been a fountain of information, and important information that women need to pay attention to.
Kara, thanks so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Sure. Have a good day.
Thank you. And you.
This podcast is sponsored by Good Morning Freedom, my retirement coaching firm. I help executives and professionals plan the non-financial part of their retirement, like how to discover new purpose and how you want to spend your time. I offer a one-on-one coaching retirement blueprint package where we work together to discover some new avenues of exploration for your Act 3. This coaching is completely custom and will provide you with a ton of resources and support as you transition to this new stage of life. For all the details, please go to goodmorningfreedom.com/services.